The massive chamber of the Galactic Confederation hummed with nervous energy. Holographic displays flickered, casting eerie blue shadows across the faces of hundreds of alien delegates. Each representation of a different species sat rigidly, their various appendages, tendrils, and organic computational interfaces displaying a mix of fear and resignation. Captain Jaewon Park stood alone at the center of the circular platform. His dark eyes swept across the assembled representatives, noting the growing tension that seemed to pulse through the air like an electrical current. The Void Swarm's invasion maps dominated the central display, massive black tendrils consuming star systems with terrifying efficiency. "We have lost contact with 17 colony systems in the past 48 hours, announced Zara, the silicon-based chief analyst. Her crystalline form shifted, projecting holographic images of devastated planets. Entire worlds reduced to cosmic dust, their populations simply erased from existence. The Confederation's Leadership Council leaned forward. Representatives from the most advanced civilizations, the Luminary, the quantum-based Nexus Collective, and the energy-rich Stellar Concordat, whispered among themselves. Their discussions were clinical, mathematical, devoid of emotion. "Mathematical probability of survival for peripheral colonies," began the Nexus representative, "is less than 0.03%. Recommended action, complete withdrawal and strategic reallocation of resources." Jaewon's hand clenched involuntarily. He knew what was coming, the clinical language of survival that would condemn millions to certain death. "The human delegation objects," he stated firmly. His voice cut through the chamber's ambient noise like a laser, causing several delegates to turn and stare. The Luminary Elder, a being composed of pure energy and ancient wisdom, tilted its form towards Park. "Captain, explain your objection. The mathematics are clear." Jaewon stepped forward, his naval uniform crisp and pressed. Behind him, a holographic display began showing images of the colonies, not as statistical data points, but as living communities. Children playing, families working, scientists researching, artists creating. "These are not numbers," he said quietly. "These are people. Sentient beings with hopes, dreams, and the right to survive." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The humans' emotional argument felt almost primitive compared to their calculated approach to galactic management. The Stellar Concordat's representative, a being of pure electromagnetic energy, responded coldly. "Emotional arguments have no place in strategic survival protocols. The colonies are strategically insignificant, their loss is mathematically acceptable." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Jaewon could see the vote forming before it happened. Hundreds of civilizations would turn their backs on millions of lives, all in the name of statistical survival. But something burned inside. The human captain, a fundamental belief that no life was expendable, that mathematics could never replace morality. "If no one will help," Jaewon declared, his voice steady and strong, "humanity will." Shocked silence followed his statement. The alien delegates looked at each other, some with confusion, others with a hint of something that might have been respect. The Confederation's leader, a massive neural network housed in a translucent computational sphere, processed the humans' declaration. "You propose to challenge the collective decision of the most advanced civilizations in the known universe?" "I propose we remember our fundamental responsibility," Jaewon responded, "to protect life, in all its forms." As the debate continued, something subtle shifted in the chamber. The cold calculation of survival began to feel less absolute. The human captain had introduced an element they hadn't expected, pure, unapologetic hope. The vote was called. Hundreds of civilizations raised their computational markers, condemning the peripheral colonies to extinction. Humanity stood alone, a single vote of defiance. But for Jaewon Park, that single vote was enough. Where others saw certain doom, he saw an opportunity to prove that humanity was different, that they would risk everything to save those who could not save themselves. The Void Swarm was coming, and humanity would be ready. The battleship Resilience moved silently through the darkness of space, its quantum engines humming with a low, barely perceptible vibration. Captain Jaewon Park stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the massive holographic display showing the star system they were approaching. Yoona Kim, the ship's first officer, called out from her station. Multiple distress signals detected in Sector 7 Gamma. Multiple alien civilization signatures are failing. The display flickered, showing 3 distinct colony worlds. Each planet told a story of impending disaster. The luminary settlement appeared as a network of delicate crystal structures, now flickering with dying energy signatures. Zoraxian agricultural domes showed critical life support failures. A third colony, belonging to the Creel, was barely visible, its atmospheric protective shields collapsing. "Time to intervention?" Jaewon asked, his voice calm but urgent. Hyun-Ki Lee, the chief engineer, calculated quickly. 17 standard minutes before complete system collapse. We can't save everyone, but we can save some. The bridge fell silent. This was the moment that would define their mission. Every decision would mean life or death for thousands of beings they had never met. Yoona's hands moved rapidly across her control panel, scanning for concentrated population centers, preparing emergency quantum transport protocols. The resilience began to change. Its hull shifted, adaptive technologies reconfiguring to maximize rescue potential. External energy collectors extended like metallic wings, drawing power from nearby star radiation. "First transport target," Yoona reported. "Luminary Central Settlement. Approximately 12,000 life forms detected." Jaewon nodded. "Begin immediate evacuation. Use compressed quantum tunnels. Minimize energy loss." Brilliant streams of light began to dance between the resilience and the dying luminary world. Thousands of beings, crystalline entities that looked like living prisms, began to materialize on the ship's specialized containment decks. Hyun-Ki monitored the process. "Structural integrity at 89%. We can handle 2 more mass transfers." The Zoraxian colony was next. These were beings that looked like a cross between plants and sophisticated machines. Their agricultural domes were collapsing, oxygen levels dropping rapidly. "Transporting now," Yoona called out. Another burst of light. Another 8,000 lives saved from certain destruction. The Creel were different. Their colony was more primitive, less technologically advanced. They would be the most challenging. Rescue. "They don't have standard transport interfaces," Hyun-Ki warned. "We'll need to use emergency bridge protocols." Jaewon stepped forward. "Manual intervention. Prepare emergency pods. We'll do this the hard way." Small ships began to launch from the Resilience. Piloted by human crews, they navigated the collapsing planetary environment, rescuing Creel populations in direct, physical evacuations. It was dangerous. It was complex, but it was human. As the last rescue pod returned, alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Void swarm detection systems lit up the holographic displays. "They're coming," Yoona said quietly. The alien refugees, Luminary, Zoraxian, Creel, watched from their containment areas. Thousands of lives saved, but the threat was far from over. Jaewon looked at his crew. "We've completed the first phase. Now we fight." Hyun-Ki's voice was steady. "Weapon systems charged. Quantum, shields at maximum." The Resilience turned, facing the incoming Void Swarm forces. Where other civilizations saw certain defeat, humans saw a chance to prove something fundamental about their species. They would protect those who could not protect themselves, no matter the cost. The first Void Swarm ships appeared on the long-range scanners. Dark, massive, hungry. But the Resilience was ready. Humanity was ready. The asteroid belt seemed to come alive with human strategy. Resilience moved like a phantom, using massive space rocks as mobile shields against the Void Swarm's relentless assault. Hyun-Ki Lee stood at the engineering station, his hands dancing across quantum interfaces. Complex mathematical calculations, transformed into tactical maneuvers that defied traditional warfare concepts. Where other civilizations saw obstacles, humans saw opportunities. "Redirecting asteroid trajectories," he murmured. "Creating dynamic defensive patterns." The rescued alien populations watched in silent amazement. Luminary crystal beings projected holographic understanding, tracking every movement. Zoraxian machine plants analyzed the tactical genius unfolding before them. Captain Jaewon Park remained calm. His eyes calculated multiple potential scenarios simultaneously. Each movement was a chess move in a galactic game where survival was the only prize. Quantum disruption shields preparing, Yuna Kim reported. Her fingers moved with surgical precision, transforming the ship's defensive capabilities. The void. Swarm approached like a massive dark cloud. Computational entities designed for pure destruction, they understood mathematics and elimination. They did not understand adaptation. They did not understand human creativity. Sudden bursts of energy erupted from resilience, targeted quantum pulses that caused momentary computational confusion in the void swarm's attack formations. Each pulse was a mathematical contradiction, a language the enemy could not comprehend. Targeting their computational weak points, Hyun-Ki explained to the alien refugees, "We're not just fighting, we're solving a complex problem." The battle transformed from a traditional military engagement into something more, a dynamic, evolving mathematical puzzle where humans were constantly rewriting the rules. Alien observers noticed something unique about human warfare. Where other civilizations had rigid strategies, humans improvised. Where others calculated precise elimination, humans found innovative solutions. The asteroid belt became a living weapon, rocks redirected, energy patterns disrupted. The void swarms massive, ships suddenly found themselves navigating an environment that changed faster than their computational systems could process. Adaptive defensive matrix at 76% efficiency, Yuna reported. Her voice remained steady, professional. Jaewon watched the holographic displays. Each movement was calculated yet spontaneous. The human crews moved with a synchronicity that seemed almost magical to the alien observers. Kira, the Luminary strategic advisor, whispered to her fellow refugees, "They're not just fighting, they're creating." The battle continued. Hours became days. The resilience transformed the asteroid belt into a living, breathing defensive system. Void swarm ships crashed. Computational networks became confused. For the first time, the seemingly invincible enemy found itself uncertain. Hyun-Ki's most brilliant innovation was a quantum frequency disruption system. By creating mathematical patterns that existed simultaneously in multiple computational states, he effectively created a language the void swarm could not translate. "We're speaking in a code they cannot understand," he explained simply. The rescued alien populations began to understand. Humanity was not just a military force. They were problem solvers, innovators, beings who saw challenges as opportunities for creative solutions. Jaewon's strategy was simple yet revolutionary. Don't just resist. Redefine the entire concept of resistance. As the battle continued, something remarkable happened. The void swarm's computational confidence began to crack. Their perfect mathematical approach to destruction encountered an enemy that did not follow any known rules. Human unpredictability became their greatest weapon. The asteroid belt continued its dance. Rocks moved, energy patterns shifted. The resilience adapted moment by moment, and in the middle of this impossible resistance, humanity showed the galaxy something profound. When faced with certain destruction, they did not just fight, they reimagined survival itself. The battle was far from over, but for the first time the void swarm was not certain of victory, and uncertainty, for a computational enemy, was the most terrifying weapon of all. The dimensional breach loomed like a massive wound in space. Darkness pulsed from its center, threatening to consume everything in its path. The resilience approached, surrounded by a makeshift fleet of rescued alien ships, each one a testament to human determination. Captain Jaewon Park studied the holographic display. His fingers traced the complex network of potential attack vectors. The void swarm had become more than an enemy. They were a mathematical problem waiting to be solved. "Quantum disruption sequence preparing," Yuna Kim announced. Her voice was calm, professional. Around her, the bridge crew moved with synchronized precision. Hyun-Ki Lee's fingers flew across the engineering interfaces. Experimental technology that had been theoretical moments ago now became their primary weapon. Quantum entanglement systems began to activate, creating a network of potential destruction that defied traditional warfare concepts. The rescued alien populations watched from their containment areas. Luminary crystal beings projected holographic calculations. Zoraxian machine plants analyzed every movement. The Creel, the most primitive of the rescued civilizations, simply watched in raw, pure hope. "We have one chance," Jaewon said quietly. "One moment to close the dimensional breach." The battle transformed into something beyond traditional combat. It became a complex mathematical dance. Where the Void Swarm saw destruction, humans saw an opportunity to solve an impossible problem. Kira, the Luminary strategic advisor, approached Captain Park. Her crystalline form refracted the bridge's lighting. "Your strategy defies all known tactical approaches," she observed. Jaewon smiled slightly. "Sometimes survival requires reinventing the rules." The first wave of Void Swarm ships attacked, massive computational entities designed for pure elimination. But the human fleet was ready. Adaptive shields created mathematical contradictions. Energy patterns shifted faster than the enemy could process. Resilience moved like a living entity. Each movement was both a defensive maneuver and an attack. Quantum pulses created computational disruptions that confused the Void Swarm's primary attack networks. "Breach containment at 62%, Yuna reported. Quantum entanglement generators preparing final sequence." The alien ships around Resilience began to form a complex geometric pattern. Each vessel positioned precisely, creating a living network of defensive and offensive capabilities. It was a strategy no conventional military would have conceived. Hyun-Ki's voice cut through the tension. "Preparing dimensional collapse protocol. This will be our only chance." The plan was simple yet impossible. Use the rescued ships as quantum anchors. Create a mathematical contradiction so profound that it would force the dimensional breach to collapse. "All ships," Jaewon commanded, "prepare quantum synchronization." A massive burst of energy erupted. Quantum threads connected the ships, creating a network that existed simultaneously in multiple computational states. The Void Swarm's attack. Formations suddenly found themselves navigating an environment that changed faster than their systems could process. The dimensional breach began to react. Darkness pulsed. Reality itself seemed to bend. "Synchronization at 89%, Yuna called out. The final moments approached. One movement, one calculation, one chance to save everything. Jaewon looked at his crew. No words were needed. They had become more than a military unit. They were problem solvers, survivors. "Quantum collapse sequence initiating," Hyun-Ki announced. Tui. Universe seemed to hold its breath. In that moment, humanity showed the galaxy something profound. When faced with certain destruction, they did not just resist. They reimagined the very concept of survival. The dimensional breach began to close. And everything changed. The silence was profound. Space itself seemed to hold its breath in the aftermath of the dimensional breach's collapse. Resilience drifted, systems flickering, her hull scarred and battered but unbroken. Captain Jaewon. Park remained motionless on the bridge. His hand rested on the command console, fingers slightly trembling, the only sign of the immense tension that had just passed. Yuna Kim was the first to speak. "Dimensional breach, completely closed," she reported, her voice a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. Outside, the rescued alien ships began to power up. Luminary crystal vessels glimmered with renewed energy. Zoraxian machine ships hummed with life. The Creel transport pods flickered their primitive but functional systems. Hyun-Ki Lee ran final system diagnostics. "Quantum entanglement networks." "Holding," he said quietly. "We did it." But the cost had been enormous. Nearly 60% of the human fleet was gone. Entire ships had been sacrificed to create the quantum disruption field. Thousands of human lives had been spent to save millions of alien lives. The communication systems crackled to life. Incoming transmissions from multiple alien civilizations began flooding the ship's receivers. Messages of hope, messages of gratitude, messages that would change galactic history forever. Kira, the luminary strategic advisor, approached Captain Park. Her crystalline form reflected the bridge's emergency, lighting. "You saved not just lives," she said, "but the very concept of collective survival." J1's response was simple. No life is expendable. In the days that followed, the story spread across the galaxy. How a single human fleet had done what hundreds of advanced civilizations could not. How they had faced certain destruction and transformed it into an opportunity for survival. The Galactic Confederation was forced to reassemble. This time the meeting was different. No longer were humans seen as a young, inexperienced species. They were recognized as the moral compass of the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered. The same chamber where humans had been dismissed weeks earlier now became a place of profound recognition. The Rodriguez Accords, announced the Confederation leader, will ensure no civilization is ever abandoned again. The name came from Captain Rodriguez, the tactical genius who had led the final mission to close the dimensional breach. A human who had sacrificed everything to save those who could not save themselves. Survivors from the rescued colonies began sharing their stories. Luminary children played with human rescue team members. Zoraxian scientists collaborated on quantum research. The Creel learned advanced technologies from human engineers. A new era of galactic cooperation had begun, but the most profound changes were not technological or political. They were philosophical. The galaxy had learned something fundamental about survival, that mathematical calculations could never replace moral courage. Aboard Resilience, the surviving crew understood something deeper. They had not just fought a war, they had solved an impossible problem. They had shown that creativity, adaptability, and hope were the most powerful weapons in the universe. Jaewon Park looked at his crew. Yuna, Hyunki, the others who had survived. They were more than a military unit now. They were the living proof that compassion could be a strategic advantage. "We did not just save lives," he told them quietly. "We changed how the galaxy understands survival." The rescued alien civilizations agreed. Humanity had shown them something more valuable than advanced technology or military might. They had shown them the true meaning of hope. As Resilience began its journey home, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. A testament to a species that had looked certain destruction in the eye and refused to blink. Humanity had arrived.